Hello, everybody. It's Laura Eisenhower. I'm here with some very incredible people with like super awesome missions. I actually know both of them. I met Z Earthstar Healer at Dimensions of Disclosure, got to hear her incredible singing. And Harlan, Emil, do I say it like that?
Emil.
Emil. Yeah, we go back many, many years. I think we saw each other a lot at Contact in the Desert. And I just want to thank you guys so much for joining me. And I'll, share with everybody your bios, but I just first want to just thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, sure. And I hear you both are working together. And so I look forward to you both sharing about your collaborations before we close. And I'll share all the links in the description. But we'll start here with Harlan. Harlan Emil received a BFA in environmental design from Parsons School of Design after studying physics at Emory University and electrical engineering at Georgia Tech and University of Miami. He has combined these interests into a lifelong art and design profession that has exhibited internationally. Harlan Emil worked for the design firm Site Projects of New York before launching his independent career in 1987. He has been attending the Burning Man Festival in Nevada since 1999, creating large-scale portal sculptures, both on his own and in collaboration with other artists since 2004. He is currently focused on developing ecologically sustainable human habitations. And his website is amazing. I'll have him share before we close. I was just looking through it before we got on, and this is the kind of stuff that we just need to get in touch with in the crazy times that we're in. And this is really, what the Organic Ascension timeline is all about. So it's so cool that you guys have both come together in collaboration. So let me tell you a bit about Z. Z Earthstar is the Andromedan visionary of the Earthstar Sanctuary. Z is an angelic geneticist upstairs. For these skills and knowledge, she was called forth to support the Starseed mission, weaving divine strands of DNA for the wanderers to arrive on Earth with. Z's work now is landing the Galactic Administration presence on Earth through sound, community, galactic wisdom, and architecture. So this is really awesome. What a great synergy as far as both of your missions are concerned. And just to start off, I know, Harlan, you have a video that you'd like to present. So let's give it a try and see if we're able to do a share screen and get an intro and kind of give us a little bit of a idea of what video this is. I mean, what are we watching here?
Oh yeah, let me get that queued up. It's almost queued up, but of course, and you didn't even mention yet, like my website is called Portal to the New Earth, and that was also this event that I was producing, which is how I connected with Z, which we'll get into in just a moment. And so let me just see why I...
Yes, we'll make sure we don't miss anything. That was just, sort of the bio part of it, but yeah.
I need to go to the... But yeah, so I just launched this. The original Portal to the New Earth website was all about the event that I produced from 2014 to 2019 in Joshua Tree, which is what Z both came as an attendee, and then she was the featured presenter at the last one we did in 2019. But now I'm no longer producing that event, but Portal to the New Earth is also the name of the book that I'm now writing, and a YouTube channel and this website. And here is the introductory video to it, which I will now share so people can get a good sense of what's going on. And let's see, make sure share sound, optimize for video clip, share, and go to, you can see it now, and let's see, full screen. How's that look? All good?
My name is Harlan Emil Gruber. I have been creating interactive portal installations since 2004 at Burning Man and other festivals around the world, starting with the 1111 Diamond Portal. I have gone on to build many more of these portal installations that all contain the Quasar Wave Transducer, a device I invented that creates subtle low-frequency purring vibrations in the range of human brain waves and the Earth's Schumann resonance. These sounds also signify that the geometries used in these designs are vibrational energy patterns. The intent of these portals is to facilitate an evolution of consciousness in the participants so that they will awaken to the fact that everything in the world is sacred and choose to live accordingly. I have been doing presentations on the portal installations that go into detail explaining the three-dimensional geometries that are utilized in their design, as well as a general understanding of how three-dimensional geometry relates to the evolution of consciousness. The original inspiration for this work comes from one of my life's biggest influences, the geodesic dome inventor and comprehensive design scientist R. Buckminster Fuller. His vision is, quote, to make the world work for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time through spontaneous cooperation without ecological offense or the disadvantage of anyone. I'm also inspired by the Italian architect Paolo Solari's book, Arcology, City in the Image of Man, that depicts his visions of ecologically integrated three-dimensional megastructure cities. I have gone on to study how humanity can inhabit the Earth in the most beautiful and sustainable way, such as Bruno Taut's crystalline cities on mountaintops conceived in 1919, Glenn Small's massive biomorphic biosphere from the late 60s, and contemporary bioarchitect Vincent Calabet's concepts such as this bridge built using 3D printing aerial drones. I have combined all of these studies into my own design for an arcology called the 12-Spiral City that consists of spiraling ramps wide enough to contain all of the buildings, streets, and gardens that are built upwards over time. I'm now developing a technique called Teraquaforming, integrating land and water into human-built environments in a regenerative and life-enhancing way. Examples of this are the ancient rice terraces of Asia and man-made lakes, but Teraquaforming goes a step further by integrating everything from the scientific to the spiritual nature of reality to create a world of divine harmony and sacred beauty to benefit not only humanity, but all life and the earth itself. I invite anyone inspired by this to collaborate on its development.
So that is the intro to what I'm working on, which is both a book, which is about to be published, a YouTube channel that will be producing short videos on each of those subjects. So we'll be diving into sacred geometry, diving into all the different portals and their designs and intentions, and then into these different futuristic designs, and also underlying things like the Earth energy grid, ley lines, how sound is a key to all of this. So it's a pretty comprehensive overview of like this way of creating the new Earth where we want to live in, sacred harmony. So, so that website is portaltothenewearth.com. And also there's a Facebook community page so that people can then get on that and share and meet other people and share their ideas. I'm really trying to open this up to be a real collaborative effect, a way for people to come together, not just for me to share what I'm doing, but that to catalyze and instigate people to connect on it. So I guess this is a good time to get one of the key things that I wanted to talk about with you out of the way so we can get into like more inspiring things. But to that end, I'm actually looking for people that want to help produce these videos for the YouTube channel, and people that can help me get the book all laid out and printed and distributed and book tour and stuff. I mean, I'm working on that and it's happening. But I really use people that have expertise in those fields, also people that want to help me build those portal installations. I actually just received a grant from Burning Man for the first time to build this new huge project that I collaborated with this woman from South Africa named Maria. It's called the 144 Interdimensional Space-Time Portal. That was actually just confirmed today. And that I will need to start working on building this, and whether bringing it there or displaying it publicly. And there's numerous other designs that I have that are available for purchase. And I've always been looking for people that have expertise in PR, marketing, and producing these things and, collaborating on them. So I'm fully open to that, as well as just people to work generally on these new ideas for future cities to, continue to dream and come up with these ideas. And eventually we'll find some land and start building this. So the call is out there, and you can contact me directly through the website or through all of that. So
brilliant, amazing.
Yeah.
What an incredible video. Wow. And I'm just going to start with sort of the first question for both of you, and whoever just wants to start. I don't know if you do, Z, since he just spoke for a little bit, or he can begin. Just whoever feels most inclined. But here's my question. I know you both have important messages, experiences, and inspirations, which you just shared, of course, Harlan, and things that though have really stood out to you along the way that have played a big part in your understanding, your mission, or the things that pretty much inspire you. So I guess the question is, what is standing out to you most right now? You mentioned, for example, Harlan, a powerful message from an Andean elder. And then Z, maybe you can share about your Starseed mission and some of the recent YouTube videos you've shared lately, or pretty much anything you like, of course. And whoever wants to kind of start.
Well, I'll defer to Z if she wants to go.
Okay, well, hi everybody. Thank you so much, Laura, for having me on here. I'm so excited to get to communicate with all of the beautiful star seeds out there. Hopefully that today we bring in a little bit more integration and some hope and some uppity, lovely energies to help us feel that, everything's actually okay and that we're exactly where we need to be. I feel so excited to be here with Harlan today. It's really funny. He's probably going to tell you that um, my story began with this voice in my ear that was like, "Where are you from?" This is like when I was 19, back in 2013. And I was like, I don't know, China or something. And this voice was like, Andromeda. And I was like, what? Because, I just dropped out of school for classical piano. And I was this like very nice little Chinese girl that was very studious. And so that experience was kind of extreme. And within a couple months, I dropped out of school. I lost all my belongings, and it seems like the whole universe just redirected my whole life. And I think this is probably a story that has happened to a lot of us where, live your life in a certain way for a while, and then some crazy spiritual thing happens, and all of a sudden there's now new parts of you coming in, and you're like, oh, I think I'm supposed to be doing something, or I have this mission on earth, and we embark on our awakening journey. And at this point, it's been 7 years. At that point, my galactic team started communicating with me, and they said that I would walk into my body over 7 years, meaning that at some point I would embody myself as my true soul, who I was upstairs, and I would begin to operate inside of my body as myself. And this is also the path that all the starseeds are on. And this is eventually how I met Harlan, because he heard my story, and he also is from Andromeda. And there's just this special resonance between us. I consider him my Mad Hatter uncle from Andromeda. He says I'm his commander, so we have these different ideas of who the other person is. But I think it works out. It turns out that we have, very similar missions, and I think it's the same mission that all starseeds have, which is to create this higher dimensional new Earth reality. And so I feel like the most important thing that I can share at this moment, and we'll get into later, is how we really get to doing that, right? So I spent many years living in my car. I decided that I would just devote my whole life to this, because when these beings told me that I'm actually a higher dimensional being in a human body here to do a mission, nothing else had ever made more sense to me my whole life. And some people would be like, what? That's crazy. But to me, I was like, oh, everything makes sense now. Right? Because my whole life, I was like, something's not right. I can't put my finger on it. Why are people so mean to each other? And that moment, I was like, oh, yeah, of course. Like, that makes so much sense. And so over the next 7 years, as I decided that nothing mattered more to me than me remembering who I am and aligning myself to my mission, because that's my life purpose. That's why I'm here. And so I decided to just kind of give away my personal will, let's say, the parts that want to be comfortable, the parts that want to hide, the parts that want to stay at that matrix job. And I just completely dove headfirst into this reality. And I think I was really lucky because I was really young. I didn't have any dependents. I think that our collective kind of nominated me at that point to go through this journey. What happened then was the universe just guided me through all of these things, and eventually, I found out that the aliens had actually left me land, and they want me to anchor this Stargate thing, and we'll go into that later. But over the course of time, I realized that, we're really the ones that are here to create the new. And how do we actually do that? Is by activating our multidimensional light body, by excavating our vessel, which is our creation technology, right? The mechanics of creation happens through the vessels. And that's why when we begin to embody, when we begin to activate our DNA, we begin to create the new, and every single little piece of that is a part of the alchemy. So just to give you I'm not bragging or anything. I think I'm supposed to just say this as an example, as a way shower. I'm now 26 years old. I woke up when I was 19. It's been 7 years, and I spent a few years homeless in my car, listening to God, doing whatever it is that I knew I had to do, even if it seemed crazy to other people. And now at 26, I'm here on the land. I'm building new. I'm running a multi-6 digit business that is quickly scaling into 7, 8 digits. And I have 8 people here working with me, and we're all operating in the 5D template. And I think this is really important because, we can begin to kind of move out of our integrity in certain ways to try to make the world different, when really what we're here to do is create the new. And oftentimes we avoid creating the new because it requires for us to go inside and look at the things inside of ourselves that's difficult. So I'm really here to hold this pillar for all of us. I'm here to support the ground crew in accessing this level of self-mastery, because we are all masters, right? We're coming from the higher dimensions. And so that's kind of a little spiel on what I'm here to do.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Really, really awesome. Gosh, it's so great to have you both here together. And yeah, so kind of, with the same kind of question, whether you want to share a little bit about the powerful message from the Andean elder or anything else that's kind of jumping out to you that's really coming through strong that you want to kind of touch on, a little bit about your journey, kind of like she shared, anything.
Yeah, so first, I feel it's important to just follow up with Z about how we connected. It's such a great story. And then I want to get to your question, which is, some of the key points, because I want to be really practical in this. I know a lot of the ideas and things I do, are very grandiose and visionary. And how can we actually do something about it right now in our lives? Like the people who are listening to this now, it's like great to think about all this, but, we have to live each day in the moment and make choices. So I'll get to those messages in just a moment. So I first learned of Z by listening to her interview. She's been doing, actually, when you go to her YouTube channel or look her up on YouTube, she has been interviews since going back to 2018, which is when she really started to come into her power and start to teach and talk. And it was in the fall of 2018, I heard one interview and I kind of remembered it, and that was that. But then it was February of 2019, which is literally only just a little over 2 years ago. She was on Lauren Gailey's Quantum Conversation, and I was just like, wow, she is amazing. And I was already had my event for May of Portal to the New Earth all scheduled, but I wanted her to be part of it. So I went to her website, sent an email off explaining exactly the event and asking if she could come be part of it, and sent it to her email, which who knows when she ever checks her email, as some people don't check email very often. Went back to goofing off on Facebook, which I would do way too much, and immediately this very bold typeface with a bright colored background, one of those posts came up that just said, "What if CNN became Starseed News Network?" And I was like, what friend of mine would post that? And the friend's name was Xiang Ming Wang. And I'm like, I don't know anybody named that. And I click on it to see who it is, and it's Z Earthstar. And I'm like, I never friended her. I never met her. I have no idea how we're friends on Facebook, but here she is. So I send her a Facebook message saying, I just sent you an email and I want you to be part of Portal to the New Earth. And of course, Z sometimes hangs out on Facebook a bit. So she replied immediately to the message. And she replied saying, I love Portal to the New Earth. It's my favorite festival I've ever been to, and I would love to come to Portal to the New Earth this year. So I write back and go, you were at Portal to the New Earth. Now, mind you, there's only about 100 people who've ever come, and I know or meet most of them. It's not too hard for me, and I'm the main guy there running it. So I'm like, did you ever talk to me? Did we ever meet? Did you ever say hi? She goes, no, I kept to myself. Mind you, that was back in 2016. She wasn't fully teaching yet. She was just being her, homeless kid living in a car running around. But when I look back at photos from that festival, she's in like half the photos. I'm like, oh my God, she was there. I never talked to her. So now we're in communication. I'd love to come. She was actually living in Peru 2 years ago, but she flew back to Canada and she came for the Portal to the New Earth May of 2019. And when I got up there to introduce her, I basically said, I've been producing this festival for the last few years, and I'd like to now introduce to you the main reason why I put this festival on. I've created this festival pretty much for the sole purpose for being able to have Z Earthstar here to be able to present and teach for you. And it's in her book. You got to get her book. Where's the copy of it? Sitting here. I should hold it up. But go on Amazon and order your copy of I Am Starseed. Oops, sorry, Z, you're upside down. I guess in space, there's no up or down. And in the book is the story of how Z set for herself this intense study for her to integrate her being a starseed. And she said that when she's finished, when she's fully done, like you go to college and at the end of college, you get your degree handed to you. Well, she wasn't going to college. She made her own course, but she said, I'm going to have a graduation when I'm done with this and I'm ready to be fully incarnated to do my work. And she said, I'm going to have my favorite musicians at that. Well, the headliners I had were her two favorite musicians, Kalia Scintilla and Yaima, and it was essentially I put on her graduation party for her without even knowing it. So it's just such a cool story. So that's the story. I mean, you could go on more and more, but there you go.
Oh, but the past life connection. Before you will finish what you're saying, but then
that's it. I don't know past life, but yeah. So
yeah, like parallel kind of like.
This is our connection. I met Lisa Renee, who I know you love and work with a lot, back in 2009. And I was very fortunate at that time. She was still like doing readings for people. And she did this incredible reading for me. And she gets right on from the beginning and says, you're not like the other starseeds I work with. You're from Andromeda. You're here to bring in the galactic frequency. And when I was told that, it was kind of like the same as when that voice in Z's head said that. It was like when I've heard that I'm from Andromeda, I'm from another galaxy, everything clicked into place. I mean, I'd already been doing this work my whole life. I've been kind of awake since I'm a teenager. You know, having read Robert Anton Wilson's Cosmic Trigger when I was 18 years old, and the Illuminatus trilogy back in like the 70s. And, you know, I was fully tuned into this stuff. But when I heard I'm from Andromeda, I was like, now I get it. Like, I'm like bringing in this galactic frequency. And so then when I heard that Z was Andromedan, it's like, oh, finally the commander has shown up. We can get this show on the road. Like, I'm like the frontline troop that came earlier, and now that she's here. So, you know, we just resonate very closely, having that Andromedan connection, and then just our energies and our frequencies are such that we're really compatible. Like, I feel like I really get Z. She doesn't have to go into a lot of detail, explain stuff to me, and I hope that she gets me. So, you know, and we just cut through all the bullshit, you know, and not put up with a bunch of crap. And we're just like, okay, let's just try our best to, you know, get the people activated, awaken, and get the show on the road. So with that said, now I'm going to answer that because I kind of, you know, clued you in that I wanted to share some things that really aren't so much exactly about what my portal to the new earth is, which is all, you know, sacred geometry, building portals, building cities, but that's all the ultimate goal. How do we get there? What are the steps it's going to take for all of us and humanity to awaken? And like, I follow you so closely, Magenta Pixie, you know, all these other people that are tuning into the higher dimensional galactic federation, you know, Elizabeth April, and, you know, there's all these people that are, you know, cutting edge information. One of my favorite is the Cosmic Empress. Is that her name? Natasha? Anyway, there's so many great people tuning into their guides and the galactic stuff. But what I find to be the most grounded and the most practical information is coming just here from the earth, from the natives that have lived here forever. And, you know, the natives do acknowledge their star heritage, just like the Cherokees know their connection to the Pleiades, and all of the natives, you know. And so I want to share not one, but two just very basic practical messages from native beings that are really useful for everyone to see exactly what's going on and what the steps are that we can move ahead. So it was exactly, you know, after the big lockdown hit last April, this video showed up interviewing this Andean elder, and it was in Spanish, so it was in subtitles. And I was so moved by it, I started sharing it. Well, that video is now gone. Luckily, I wrote down and took notes from it. And so the essence of what this elder, now she lived in these mountaintops that are separate from the rest of the Western world. They live in these beautiful, pristine, there's a lot of people have heard about the Kogi who call themselves the elder brother. Well, she's not from the Kogi tribe, but it's a similar tribe. There are these tribes way up in the Andes that have hardly any contact with the Western world and just live in harmony with nature in these beautiful, perfect eco villages. So she happened to be in LA when everything got locked down, and she's like, oh my God, what are we going to do? We're locked down here. So this is the key part of our message, which I'll read. Currently, the fallen angels and angels of darkness are doing their task to confront light workers to resolve it with light. This light is nothing else than the harmony, tranquility, and peace that we carry in our hearts. Remain in a state of complete calmness and harmony. Observe ourselves at all times. Keep your heart calm, your emotions and mental activity quieted, so that your spirit may elevate to the higher vibrations of those not yet conscious. The moment has arrived. The decision is ours. Reunite with the highest vibration of love and energy to compassionately embrace all of our brothers. We are not alone. Our higher guides, masters, grandfathers, and ancestors are with us. Thus, I invite you, wherever you find yourself, whether surrounded by people or in solitude, truly transform yourself into a lighthouse catalyst for the energies to catalyze those under the veil. We have the responsibility to take the veil off. Those simple words, because we want, and we don't have to confront people and tell them, and you can't, because it's just get into fights, as you know. Just remain calm, find that light in your heart, and just see that we're here to catalyze that. And then this brings us to the next point. So I've been reading the books by Hank Wesselman, who he wrote back in the late 90s, early 2000s, a trilogy called Vision Seeker, Medicine Maker, and Spirit Walker, where he was a Western PhD anthropologist working at a university, a total Western scientist, not New Age at all. He started to have spontaneous visions where his body would freeze and he would see through the eyes of this Hawaiian person living 5,000 years in the future in a world that is no longer technological. And it's such a powerful story. Well, Hank, through sharing this story, also went into studying shamanism very much in depth. I mean, he's like a scientist and he wants to understand things as best as possible from a very Western scientific way. And through that studies, though, he became connected and very closely acquainted with the big Hawaiian kahuna, Hale Makua, who was descended from King Kamehameha on one side and the queen on the other, and was regarded in Hawaii as like the head kahuna of all ancient Hawaiian kahuna teachings. And Makua took Hank under his wing because he recognized him who he is as this white person, scientist, that is now bringing these teachings forth to the world. And so he then wrote a book in 2011 called The Bowl of Light, which I'm right now in the middle of reading. And in it, I came across these a couple of sentences that really embodies precisely what I'm wanting to do with creating this new earth that's in sacred harmony, but also the final sentence is what each one of us has to do, because it's up to us each personally. So he writes, it's the chief's responsibility to create abundance through their relationship with nature. And this necessitates our knowing who we are as well as where we are. It also demands reverence and a return to nature-focused spirituality. It requires a re-enchantment of humanity as well as a re-enchantment of nature. I want to comment on that before I read the final sentence, because this whole thing about, there was another sentence, I forgot to write it down, about Hank went to this sacred rock in this sacred heiau to pray, and Hank was all filled with reverence for this one sacred rock. And Makua is like, look, it's good to regard things as sacred, but you got to understand, everything is sacred. And that's what I'm talking about, is that we have to see that everything in this earth is sacred and live accordingly. And that's how we'll create and build our cities and villages that are the most magical, beautiful, and sustainable, because we regard water, we regard stone, we regard wood, everything as the most sacred thing. But his final statement is, the challenge for each of us is to understand that the ultimate solution to all of our problems lie within us. It is through our choices that those solutions will manifest or not. And so as much as, and I'm always focused outwardly on it, and I'm realizing I need to do more of my inward work. And that's what that's the way that we're going to create the new earth, isn't so much as us all going out and finding the land and building it all. It's us all awakening to that inner choice that we choose to regard everything as sacred. As simple as that, and act accordingly. So those are kind of the teaching I try to want to focus to help people to activate and awaken from what's, and then obviously I should just bring up the one last one, because this was on a call that you were on a year ago with Magenta Pixie. And I love this, and I share it often, because she gave us 3 simple steps as to what we need to do. 1, acknowledge there's a non-human control agenda in place. That's pretty difficult for people because most people are like, no, the world is the way it is because that's just humans. We always have wars and we always do all these bad things and we need to mine the earth and destroy things because that's what we need to survive. But once we get to a certain level, it's pretty apparent that there's a non-human agenda that's controlling humanity. And once we can see that clearly, it's like, whoa. But then what do? We no longer, step two, no longer consent. I do not consent to being under this control. And I'm a divine sovereign being that can choose to live my life in sacred harmony with all other beings. And then her third step is not to hate them or want to kill them or destroy them, but to be able to love them. Although, as Z pointed out, we don't really have to focus too much on that third step. It's better for us just to focus on getting the job done. But we don't want to fall into the trap that they are in, where we hate them and want to kill and destroy, because that's part of their agenda. We have to love them I love your term, the dark teachers. There are these dark teachers that have been put in place, just like the Andean elder says, the angels of darkness, the fallen angels are here to confront us angels of light. They're just doing their job. It's kind of like in a movie, the guy plays this horrible, awful person, but it's really just this really cool actor that we like. And their role is awful, but the dark teachers are just part of spirit and part of here to confront us so that we can own our own sovereignty and divinity.
Absolutely. Very, very well put. And yeah, I put out that video, message to the dark controllers, and then we got on that call and she was, talking about, that download that had come through, and it was just really great timing for her and I to get together. And it is so true. And when one looks at like the archetypal sort of, fairy tales where the love is sort of separated for whatever reason, and one goes into, the dark night of the soul, faces that villain, and then that like uniting and reunion happens with the true love. And to me, that's this greater love story that exists within our DNA. And, sort of where the dark teacher or the villains help us to reclaim the true love story by kind of showing us such a strong contrast to the point where the soul longing, it becomes the creative like impetus or motivation to, appease that soul longing, which to me, for all of us, is to experience love and unity. And the people that are like in hatred and this level of toxicity, I don't feel that they really like that vibration. So I want to kind of ask you both, when you see what's going on in the world and all these sort of conquer and divide agendas, and maybe you have friends or family that you're kind of surprised, you're kind of buying into it all and biting the bait. How do you kind of navigate these times, and what sort of things do you do to sort of keep yourself grounded? And do you feel sort of in shock, or is this sort of in your soul contract something that you sort of expected we'd be up against? Kind of a long-winded question. I'm really good at doing that. I ask like 3 questions in one, but anyway, whatever you want to grab. And Z, go ahead.
Okay. Wow, we just went through a lot of stuff there. So I just want to ground the energy out a little bit. And Laura, I love what you were saying about when we find that true devotion and that true path of realigning our heart to, our true essence, which is divine love, when we truly begin to experience that, that is actually when we begin to step out of the false matrix, because that's what the organic matrix is. And when I was first waking up, there's a couple things that happened. The first thing is that I got all these visions about these future healing centers and different kinds of communities that we were going to build on the planet to anchor this unity, but in a grounded and physical way. And then the second thing that happened was that my guide started telling me to go to the shopping malls to literally use my psychic ability to scan people's bodies and the mall and the earth. And this is actually how I began to wake up. It wasn't until years later that I discovered Lisa Renee's work, which just confirmed everything that I had seen with my own eyes. And I felt like, it was really important for me to go through that process, because I realized that, people's light bodies are all clogged up. The reason why they're not connecting to their higher self and not connecting to the earth is because the false matrix has done everything it could to traumatize our connection, in our mind and our crown and our root and all of our chakras. Basically, people are messed up. And so the energy is not flowing through their vessels correctly. And through all of that process, which is kind of the university that I was in, as Harlan was talking about, eventually the earth started leading me to these places to work with the land and support in the light body healing of the planet. And then eventually it led me to this land in New Mexico that this man had purchased. His name was Stuart. And he bought this land, 20 years ago. And he wanted to build this Starseed 5D Ascension community here. And interestingly enough, he actually died March of 2013, pretty much like the month that I started communicating with my Andromedans for the first time, right? When that voice came in, I was like, "You're Andromeda." And it was him. It was him that eventually led me here. And when I got here, they said that Stu said before he died that one day this little Chinese girl from Andromeda was going to come and this land was meant for her. And so when I got here and I said, I'm here to build a Starseed Mystery School, the people that were here were like his best friends, right? They were like freaking out. They're like, you talk like him, you say the crazy stuff like him, and I can't believe you're actually here. So they transferred the land to me. And so for many years after that, I would see this template in the sky, so to speak. And it was a super high frequency template of how we were meant to exist in community, how we're meant to create these sacred gardens. And yet it was so high up in the sky, it was like my body couldn't even reach it. And so I was like, well, how am I supposed to build this thing if my vibration can't even reach it? And the land started kicking me out, right? 2015 was the first time that I went there. The land said you have to be in the vibration to be able to create that thing, because we're the creator beings and the frequency emanate from us. And so if we're not even in the vibration of the thing we want to create, then it's not going to happen. So year by year, I would come back to this land and it would continue to kick me out because I wasn't ready. For whatever reason, I was addicted to the false matrix. I was addicted to relationships that were not good for me, addicted to all sorts of different things that were my coping mechanism, being inside of this traumatic environment we know as the false matrix. And so finally, eventually, I realized that, it's all up to me. I realized that the reason why our community was not grounding these creations was simply because, we weren't really doing the work. We were kind of doing the work, and we were doing the work in ways that we felt like doing it. But when it comes down to it, I decided that I needed to just make that my first priority and do that and only that. And I know that not everybody has the freedom to do that, and I did. So I was like, I need to do this. It's my responsibility, even for all of our family members that did not have that freedom to do it. And so one thing that Spirit kept saying to me, I gave you these visions to witness them unfold, not to make it happen, right? But you have to meet me halfway so that I can pour these energies through you. If you're still full of trauma and anger and distortion and blockages, I'm not going to be able to work through you. And so I basically spent, my entire life healing myself and in every way I could. And it's funny because back then when I first came here, I asked my team, what's my job? They're like, self-healing guide. And I was like, what is my sector of work? They're like, healthcare. I was like, that's a very physical word. They didn't say like galactic, whatever. They were like healthcare. I was like, what? And now I understood, that obviously health includes the embodiment of our divinity. Like a healthy human is naturally that way. And so I finally got to move in the land in the summer of 2019. And I think I had reached just a certain amount of maturity in my healing where I realized that, all of this chasing I was doing outside of myself, trying to connect people, trying to make money, trying to get funding, all of that was just useless if I couldn't anchor the template. And because, the Galactics had given me this land and shown me that I was to be the visionary, that it was my responsibility to really anchor this down. So I moved into an RV with my husband. We lived in this RV for 8 months, and all of these teachings started streaming in about how when all of our chakras are free, especially our lower 3 chakras, especially the root chakra, which is just messed up in everybody. When we really bring our cosmic consciousness into the root chakra, that's actually when things can begin to materialize, because we've slowed down enough to actually feel all the uncomfortable feelings, to interface with all of the fragmented inner children. Only then, do we actually slow down enough to meet the frequency of nature, to be able to then communicate with nature. right? We operate in a different speed, in a different frequency in the false matrix. It's just out of resonance, out of energetic resonance with nature. And so this land really held me. I noticed that it was only after 6 to 8 months of deep root chakra healing, because our root chakra is just going to take the longest amount of time to heal, because again, it's in that slow frequency. And so that's also the place that we store our understanding of reality, right? So for most people, that's the world is messed up, the cabal, whatever. I'm just this little powerless thing. I don't have enough money. I can't make money. Making money is hard. All of those little belief systems are how we believe the reality is. So all of that is in the root chakra, and you have to go through one by one, methodically, really slowly, and then you get into, for a lot of starseeds, the abduction stuff, the astral sexual abuse, the past life sexual abuse, all of it is in there, right? And we, as light beings, we are targeted, and there's a lot of sensationalism in our community about it. We're like, oh, this terrible thing happened, and oh, whatever. And it's like, you are a cosmic divine being. This is no problem. You can process this. Especially, if you have your cosmic sexual energy, just burn that stuff up, but you have to slow down enough to actually be able to access it, right? So this is in response to that thing that Harlan was saying about how, the chief is the job of the chief to bring in the abundance for the community through her alignment with nature. I began to receive these initiations with the land, and knowing that, it was my responsibility to hold this space, because as the visionary, as the person that, God has, for whatever reason, given this responsibility to, and the earth, somehow trusts me to have this responsibility as we live by a stargate. This is how, as you know, stargates are places where cosmic energy comes into the planet, and a lot of templates can be created in places like this. That's also why a lot of stargates, have military or churches on top of them, is to distort the planetary energy. So the galactics and our, cosmic team and the earth began to weave this stargate so that it could be under galactic control as a cross-universal stargate. And so for us to operate entirely in the organic matrix template is highly important, because everything that we anchor in here is holding the planetary energy. And the more that we can anchor and build and anchor and materialize physically here, the more the energy is going to be able to be held on a planetary level. And so I arrived here with no money, and with nothing but these teachings that we are infinite creators, that we create with our frequency. And it's now been, I guess, over a year and a half. And, here we are operating entirely in resonance with the earth, respecting every person's, creative impulses and original energy frequencies and templates. And now there is a team of 7 that, we are providing for at the Earthstar Sanctuary, that are co-creating this template together. And as we continue to work with this pure template of creation, pure cosmic energy through the vessel, and pure intention, pure motivation, absolutely spirit and earth led. This is actually the only energy that's even allowed to be put into building the actual center, which, the architectural design of it is going to be this kind of nautilus spiral. So we're going to be able to do ceremonies that catch cosmic energy and spiral into the earth, which is kind of what we used to do in temple, right? But, in order to build that, it's going to be $25 million at least to build they want it to be huge. This is our galactic conference center. And this is what I mean by landing the galactic administration presence on Earth. There's so many people that talk about the Galactic Federation, the galactic this, the galactic that. In my honest opinion, I feel like there was a looking glass technology that saw the real galactics that were going to land and that were going to do the real work. And decades before that even happened, they came out with the fake Galactic Federation, the fake channelers, the fake this, and now everybody's, all up here being like, yeah, the new Earth is here. Meanwhile, all this shit is still down here, and we haven't really done anything. And there's so much hijacking in our society, right? So this is what the true galactic energy feel like. It's not so much even galactic, it's just cosmic life force energy, in physical, which is the true meaning of Christ, cosmic frequencies, cosmic consciousness. And I have several stories of people being like, I want to give you millions of dollars. And the land is like, no, because this every little filament of energy has to be in divine alchemical alignment with what we're creating. It has to be created through our own mastery of that energy. And the more people that can actually get into this level of embodiment, that's when the real stuff is actually going to happen, right? And there's a very specific process for that. It's basically, this walking in of your higher self, your Christed master consciousnesses from a different dimension. And I think that's why Harlan, resonates with my work so much, is that I really appreciate the first wavers. People like Harlan, people that were born, 60s, in the 50s, 60s, even the 70s, even the 80s, you guys really came in blind and you had to drill through the foundation, and you were like, are they even coming? Like, are we here alone? What the hell's happening? I don't even know. And the whole thing with this being a very family unified project is that in my work with Starseeds, I've seen the first waivers. You guys have been feeding back information from just being here up into the ships. And that's actually how we were able to weave viral protection consciousness and genetic codes for people like me that, didn't fall asleep as much and had protection of certain viral consciousness. And now I'm able to come the second, I think I'm, second wave. I'm really here to stand on the foundation that you have created and to do the work in the physical. And so I think that's the main difference. Magenta Pixie was saying, we have to send them love. This is really the place that you have to be in the first wave, because the planet just wasn't in a vibration to be able to do anything yet. But then when we get into the second wave, which is what is initiating now, we are beginning to prepare ground crew. We are beginning to land on the earth and, be able to weave creative energy in mastery to physically create here. And so I totally understand, Harlan, he's just had such a crazy time, and he's like, okay, you're finally here. I didn't just come down here for no reason. And there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I get so many emails from first waivers being like, I'm so happy that you're here. I didn't know what was going to happen. And now seeing you, doing your thing. And I have so many visions of these new kids that are coming in. And, I know that we have to create the correct foundation for them to come in. And that's a huge part of this sanctuary as well. So that was a long ramble, but I hope that.
I was just going to say that wasn't a ramble. That was such an incredible transmission, and so really, well put. And yeah, I mean, I've been pretty mission oriented since childhood, and just everything you say, resonates so deeply. And I don't want to even just kind of go on about what sort of came through and just what your words mean to me, and so many of us who are listening. Can either one of you speak to, though, when you see somebody take a jab or do something that feels really detrimental, do you kind of go into that, oh, well, they're a lost cause and there's going to be a bifurcation, we can't hang in the same dimension, they made their choice? Some people do feel that way, and I can see why, but I mean, do you feel that part of your starseed mission is to help those souls change that energy signature if they're willing and they're beginning to start to move into the direction of recognizing themselves on a much larger scale as a multidimensional being? I don't know who wants to start, but
Well, here's the thing with the things that you're talking about. I think that embodiment and integration is the most important thing, because otherwise we're always perceiving everything through a filter. And if you can just jump out of your body for a moment where there's less emotional reactions around anything, you realize that you're this infinitely loving being that's here actually is out of compassion, is out of support, is out of the recognition of humanity as a divine species, that you're even here. And so once you're down here, it's easy to forget that, especially if our earth self hasn't been initiated, hasn't been healed. And the earth self is so, so important. In our community, we love to focus on the galactic, oh, I'm from the Pleiades, I'm from this place, and I'm whatever it is. But if the earth self, which is the one that has been through the trauma, hasn't integrated, meaning you haven't experienced yourself holding space for yourself, because we all have experienced the false matrix. I know firsthand, having gone through a lot of tragic stuff, you know, from rape to abuse to all of these things, I went through it because it would give me the awareness of moving through it. So through the process of me holding space for myself, realizing, oh shit, you know, humanity has really been abused. This is bio-spiritual abuse, which is, you know, rape on a whole other level. To have the most sacred thing to us, which is our creativity, which is our divinity, to have these things stripped and taken away from humanity, this is extraordinarily traumatic. And so without having processed through that pain, we are not going to be able to recognize that people are in pain and that they have been abused. And the next thing that we want to do is to judge that or to respond because we haven't integrated that level of compassion in our own heart. The second thing is that, you know, I hear people talking about the bifurcation, but it doesn't really make sense to me. I won't go into that right now. But recently, you know, I'm really solution oriented. I don't want to react in any way. I'm like, let's see, there's a problem. Let me find a solution because that's what we're here to do, right? So, okay, there's a situation with the vaccines. And so a long time ago, I actually remote viewed the vaccine and I saw that it was basically this plan to poison humanity. And so I started communicating upstairs about what we can do, and then ended up in Florida where there were these Starlink rocket launches. And during those rocket launches, we were able to connect our consciousness with the satellites, and now the satellites are actually emitting frequencies that neutralize the vaccine. And people were actually reaching out to me and saying that they were seeing me doing that and that it's working. And then I realized that actually, if there were more people that were working in that way, because our consciousness is powerful, that we could create a vaccine for the vaccine with energy in the collective consciousness. Now, of course, you know, if you're in reaction, you would not have come up with that. And if you haven't cleared out your lower chakras, then you wouldn't know that you have powerful psychic abilities. And so this is kind of what we hold space for and what we teach in our school. We get the ground crew cleared and trained and activated and on their mission. One thing that I was going to say something about, oh yeah, so many years ago, I went down to Vermont and there were these giant boulders in the ground, and the Pleiadians told me that they came to install or just code this light technology into the rocks, and that when the light workers and the starseeds wake up, we were going to be able to use this light technology to jump timelines. So, you know, the smaller the shift, the easier it is to jump, and the more people that are activated, that are a clear channel that can actually tune into these high frequencies and be a grounding wire for them, the easier it was going to be for us to collective jump those timelines. And so these are the higher dimensional tools that are here to support us, but we always have to meet them halfway by actually doing our own work. So I'm definitely not really afraid or panicking. I know that people are, you know, very concerned about this vaccine, but just know that we are so powerful and that we're so creative, right? We like, it's not even like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? It's like, phew, this is fun, you know, we're dancing and we're like, you know, it's good, it's all good. And so,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, the power of spirit. That's the override frequency to everything. And as long as we can access that, I feel like we can shift any energetic signature. And you just really just shared such beautiful words, and so appreciate you and gosh, everything that comes through you. And Harlan, what are your thoughts and
Well,
any kind of coming up in this latest sort of
so
dialogue?
yeah, so I mean, to answer that question is I don't really pay too much mind, and I'm really shocked at certain friends of mine that are very conscious, very hip, cool, psychedelic people that are still completely under the veil. And I know for a fact there's nothing I can say or do because I've tried, and it just gets them more mad and more divided. So I'm not even going to confront that issue. It's just like we just need to do, you know, like I said, shine our light, but also just focus on the positive. And what I wanted to bring up is, of course, you know, I talked about how, you know, I brought Z out to be part of Portal to the New Earth, and then she spent a little time here. The Portal to the New Earth was held at this place called Boulder Gardens in Joshua Tree. This guy Garth has a square mile of boulders that he lives in very much sacred harmony, and that's what inspired me to host the event there, because there's no permitted buildings, no infrastructure, and it's off grid, and a pretty pretty magical place to hold such an event. So now I'm based here. Although I had lived in Taos, New Mexico, and I still consider Taos my home base, I'm from New York originally, but I really feel strongly connected with the vibe in New Mexico. It just wasn't as practical, and somehow I'm guided to be here. Joshua Tree is also kind of a Stargate portal. We've got the biggest Marine base here, but we also have the Integratron and Giant Rock and all this other, UFO, ET related energies and stuff. And so now I have one of these portals set up in my backyard. It's the 144 Alcyon portal that I host events at. Z, after portal, we did one here, and it was right before she moved to her property. And so I'm actually, and that's what I want to segue. So I've gone back to Z's property numerous times. I was there for last year's equinox and solstice, the summer equinox and
You had like
summer
a near-death
solstice.
experience, you remember? Oh my God.
I did.
Yeah, you like you hit like
Oh, that
an
was,
elk,
oh
and
yeah,
like
that's
the
true
antler
too.
was like,
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that was right close to her sanctuary. I'm very connected, and I go there, and I even instigated for just last fall equinox. We were there together. We called in some people, and I was the one that said, "Hey, we need to do the ceremony over on the sanctuary land. She has two properties." And so we did that, and I charged up a bunch of crystals, and Z was singing, and we had sound healing. And then I actually drove all the way across the country planting these crystals that were charged with the galactic frequency at everywhere I stopped, at key points like Cahokia Mounds, out at the tip of Long Island, and the biggest ones were planted at the base of the Washington Monument. And I wasn't going to go through Washington, and circumstances led me to go through there at 3:30 in the morning. And so it was, and then on my way back home, that's when I had this face-to-face experience with death. I was uninjured, but my van and the elk both died instantaneously out in the middle of New Mexico, not far from the Earthstar sanctuary. So I ended up going back there, spending some more time with Z.
it
But
was wild. I felt like it was a huge timeline thing
I,
for you.
I guess so for me. But what I want to jump to is the key thing is that's what's happening right now. So Z has been working super, super hard. She's like the hardest working person I know. And what she's done is we're in a private closed course for students right now that started in December and runs till next December. But she's working on making this academy available to everyone, which will be launching by the end of the summer. But also, she's got this amazing thing coming up with the Pleiadian alignment. The Earth, Sun, and Pleiades all align twice a year, depending on which side of the sun we are on. But coming up in the middle of May is this Pleiadian alignment, and Z is going to be sharing a super powerful activation. And what just popped into my head just yesterday is that I can host people here in Joshua Tree. Since it's an online activation, people are not going to be going to New Mexico to be with Z. She's just going to put it out there on Zoom for people to come together. But I actually have this portal and a house people can stay at here in Joshua Tree. And I thought rather than me just sitting here alone in my studio doing the thing with Z, I can actually bring a group of people together here. So that just is something I want to announce. If people are interested in that, they can get in touch and come to Joshua Tree to then do this. It's from May 18th to the 21st. So I'll let Z now speak about that a little bit. And I'm super excited. And then Z's, we meet once a week and we do this group work together. And that's how Z figured out a way to, move ahead to keep it focused. Because, it can be, as Laura, as you know, how difficult it can be to do this kind of work. So many people out there want it, and it can be very overwhelming. So, and Z, of course, is overwhelmed too, but she's working in a way that she figured out how to keep herself from getting too overwhelmed. But she does share publicly on Saturdays too. I can't believe Saturday's her big work day. She works with us in the morning, and then Saturday afternoon, her Starseed mission. She started that a little over a month ago. But this Pleiadian alignment coming up. Let's hear from Z.
Yeah, wow, cool.
You're just such a special person, and you've just been so supportive of my mission this whole time, and I just can't thank you enough. He's always looking out for me because I'm very bad at like promoting things, and he's like, "Why aren't you promoting your book?" And then every chance he gets, he's like trying to promote my book, and I'm like so grateful because you're just the best uncle ever.
That's so great. Yeah, that's my weak spot. Yeah, that's great. Oh man. And it just can just feel your connection and I have a question about oh man, I just, so much is coming through, but yeah, go ahead. So
Yeah, so this Pleiadian gateway has been really profound in my own life. The first time that was when I was in Vermont that I discovered the Pleiadian technology, and it was confirmed by this Cherokee elder who told me the creation story of his people, that they actually did arrive in these light ships, a really long time ago. And so that just confirmed so much for me. And on the Pleiadian alignment, it's May 20th, or in November as well. We actually built, this amazing sweat lodge. So that was the first time that I came in alignment with this portal. And the second time happened when I gave birth to my baby last year, and she's my miracle master teacher who only stayed for 9 days and now is my predominant shamanic guide and support on the other side when I do shamanic work. But basically what we're able to do now is, because she was, she was telling me the star maps of how she was coming here. She was like, I'm going through the Crab Nebula, and then I come through the Cygnus constellation, and then she came in on the Pleiadian Stargate activation. And so because she came into the physical and we made a real human heart connection, and then she wove the lines right back into the other dimensions. I just realized a month ago, because she was telling me like, we're going to be working together, but I'm human, and this whole year I've just been swearing at the sky, and more so than wanting to anything to do with the work. I was like, screw you guys for doing this to me. They're like, you chose to do this. I was like, I don't remember when I decided to do that. So anyway, just a few weeks ago I realized that I had healed to a point where I was able to actually begin to connect to her when I sang. And that when that happened, this portal would open into the stargates, and this allowed, a lot of cosmic energy onto the planet, and we're able to support, light workers in their healing, and then of course holding space with our light worker family to jump collective timelines. And this is kind of what her mission was. And so actually just last week, my most recent Starseed mission support episode was all about that. I told the entire story of how she was coaching me throughout my entire pregnancy, how she came, way before she was even conceived, and began to coach me and teach me, about ascension this whole time. And so Kara and I, my baby, are going to be holding space during this Pleiadian alignment when the gateways open, and we're going to be focusing on the lower chakras, particularly healing our sexual energy, because that's kind of the main block that I see in our collective right now in being able to access our creative power. Of course, that's all planned by who, but as soon as we realize that, all of their power gets stripped away. And so we're going to bring in the cosmic energy, we're going to clear our vessel, and then in the second or the latest live sessions, we're going to be actually working with our collective timelines. And so you're going to be able to use the gateway in the space to both jump your personal timeline to activate your own creatorship, and we're going to be doing that on a collective level as well, because that's always how it happens, right? It's always as within as so without, right? So I'm going to be sharing a sample of the sound transmission later on at the end of our talk today, and I think the link will be in the description box.
oh yeah, I'll make sure that everything's in there. Gosh, so many things are coming through that it's like, now I've kind of almost like drawn a blank, but because I'm just really feeling into everything you've been sharing, and it's like major. So I'm just going to hand it over to Harlan and what your thoughts are. And I know what it was is just going to come back, but oh man, I think I was.
Laura, I see your DNA template, and I've been wanting to connect with you for so long, but I know you're so busy, and so I'm really happy that
We're too busy for you guys. I mean, the scheduling part can get a little tricky, but anyway, continue?
that's all.
Yeah, well, that's awesome.
And of course, Laura, I've been a huge fan of yours for a long time, which is why we became friends. Because whenever I had a chance, I would come up and talk to you after you've presented, because you always speak so clearly and powerfully, and have helped so many people. And that's why you were the first person I reached out to be interviewed, to start to share what I'm doing, because we have that connection. So I'm just so super grateful and honored, and then to be able to be here with Z to share this. And I feel really good that we've I've covered pretty much everything, that I wanted to get across at this time. And, even like when you just came on and you said like, oh, you're feeling a blank about asking. So I was thinking, oh, Laura's going to come up with some amazing questions to bring more stuff out. But I feel like things have gone just, we've gotten all the key points and all. And like I was, leading up to talk about promoting, because it's a little over a month away. It's the May 18th to 21st, what Z is going to be doing coming up. So people who will be watching this, and like Z said, she'll get to share. So everyone so far has heard Z speak. And when Z speaks, it's just so clear, so powerful, so down to earth, not contrived, not flaky. It's just, cuts through everything. And she's, is a great speaker, but that's only half of what she does. And the other half, so I'm about to introduce, I think we can go into it so we can spend
my question though, but you go first, because I will remember.
Go is that when she's not speaking, she's singing, and her singing it's singing. It's not light language. Like I love people who do light language, and I love listening to light language. But this is, as she calls it, oracular healing or singing. And as soon as you hear her sing, it's like,
I have heard
it connects you, to this peace and harmony in your heart and to the galactic frequencies and all. So once people, get a taste of that, if they haven't heard it before, that's what will be in store in this Pleiadian activation. And like she just said, though, it's not just going to be Z sharing the teachings, because she's fully connected with Kara, who, she's been connected with through lifetimes and is now integrating it so fully now. And even in her singing integrates these energies coming through from Kara. So I just wanted to introduce that as best as I could. So go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, I mean, both of you share. Oh, go ahead though, Z. I was just going to bring up,
I was just saying that I'm blushing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we could sit here for a while, and I mean, it's just, it's shifted me. I mean, it's just reassuring. It's beyond, I mean, yeah, I when I first heard you, it was huge. And gosh, meeting you, Harlan, you've always been just such a wonderful friend, and just always, so loving and kind. And the fact that both of you are here together, been so looking forward to this. But, you guys are familiar with Lisa Renee, and she mentions the Crystal Star hosting. And I've been talking about Ophiuchus and the 13th sign, and very much about, the Aqua Ray and Mother Arc kind of energy. And I just really feel that, you guys and your mission is that Crystal Star hosting. When the timeline shifted, it just really switched on, the fullness of your mission. And it's like, whether we call it the override frequency or whatever, to me, things like this nullify, like the mark of the beast, and the Venus transits as well. But, the sound healing component of it, the love and compassion, and being a part of the planetary consciousness and the energy of the mother, but through the galactic cores of the union between Milky Way and Andromeda, and again, to bring in those, well, she refers to, 7 higher heavens. And I guess my question was to both of you, with that Andromedan connection and energy signature, do you have memories from Andromeda? And I mean, do you go into sort of a place where you revisit that? I mean, obviously you're bringing it into the sacred architecture and just these higher principles that the fallen Milky Way system has struggled to reconnect with. But anything you want to share about Andromeda, or your memories of it, or anything? And then, and then I would just want to ask you guys, is there anything we haven't brought up? I know you said it feels like we've shared or talked about things to a point of completion, but that's, I think, my final question.
So I'll go first, because I'll be super quick, because Z will have much more memories of her Andromedan heritage. Like I said, I was told I was from Andromeda by Lisa Renee, and it just resonated with it. But I feel, I'm still very 3D. I've not done as much work as Z has, even though I'm much older than her, integrating my higher dimensional self. And I'm still like, kind of struggling with, just being a 3D guy, but, also connected on these higher levels. But Amora Quanian has these 2-volume books on Pleiadian light body healing. And in the second book, she tells the most incredible story about the relationship of the Andromedan galaxy and frequency and the Milky Way galaxy. And it's kind of, like we're here in duality, and that's, and the Andromeda and Milky Way are part of this then duality. And that, what's got, like, I like to tell people that when I'm from Andromeda, it's a lot less dense than this galaxy. So here on, and especially also, like I know people are like, I want to go to space, I want to go to Mars, I want to be, I go, we're in space. And I love Buckminster Fuller. He wrote the book, Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth. We are so far out in space here on Earth. We're in some far-flung galaxy, far-flung planet, right? There we are, space. So, we're way out here. So like, my home is Andromeda. I'm way out on space being here on Earth on this really dense, low vibrational planet, and dealing with it, as best as I can, and maybe even kind of diving into that density of pain and suffering and confusion and really physically embodying it, experiencing it. So, but yeah, so that story that Amora Kwanyan shares about the archetypal energies of the relationship of, and I can't even paraphrase it per se, but it's such, I love those books and I love Amora Kwanyan. Just throw it out there because it tells this beautiful story of what's going on between Andromeda and Milky Way and why we're connecting now and what this healing is of these vibrational energies and this reconciliation of duality as we move into this more awakened, unified, monadic operational where we're more one with our spirit and going away from this separation and the fall and stuff. And that's why connecting in the Andromedan energies, which is why I'm here and which is why Z is here. So I'm super excited to hear Z share a little bit more about how she fully remembers being a seventh dimensional Andromedan geneticist.
Oh yeah. And I'd love and help us to, just take us into that and just to kind of just say something based in what you just shared. It's those galactic chakras, these dormant strands, the junk DNA that we're beginning to awaken is coming through that Andromeda frequency, I feel, as those galactic cores have reconnected. But yeah, I mean, go for it, Z, and just, what he said to, kind of transfer the conversation over to you and the whole geneticist and how you talk about, the upstairs thing and some of your memories, but also you're still probably, just embodied experiences, being a holder of that parallel, kind of timeline that you're anchoring here through really working with the, root chakra, right?
I love you, Laura.
I love you guys. So go ahead.
So the first interesting thing is that, you mentioned Lisa Renee and the Crystal Star, and I think last year when all the stuff was coming out around who, I made this public video talking about the false light in our community, and she actually saw that video and she sent me an email and she was like, "Hey, I recognize you back from the Crystal Star." And I was like not expecting that whatsoever. And so it felt like I was like, "Oh my God," it was like I was, because she has obviously done so much for our collective. I'm so ever impressed with just how, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Just that she's done so much. But anyway, as far as my own personal memories about Andromeda, I do have memories of being a geneticist upstairs, and it doesn't really so much come in as very specific memories like, me going in the kitchen and getting coffee, but it's more like the frequency of the knowledge that I'm bringing here. So the feeling that, in the seventh density as a scientist, it's the same thing as being really spiritual, because you only get to understand the universe if you have this devotion in your heart to love the universe. That's how you earn the creator's trust to be a co-creator. So in the higher dimensions, when you become a scientist, this is actually a really esteemed and initiated kind of spiritual position, because you go through so many lifetimes devoting your heart and your love to the co-creation and to the unified field of living consciousness. And then eventually, through that devotion, you get shown more and more and more of how life and how the universe actually functions. And through that understanding, then, that's how you kind of get your degrees, as you go in through the lifetimes. And after a while, you earn the capacity to co-create with the oneness. And so as a geneticist, we were working through geometries, actually, of forming geometries that consciousness can kind of flow through, and it projects these matter or form that we experience as, shapes and personality and, things that we love, even information that is coded into genetics. And so when I'm operating with clients or when I'm working, I can kind of actually open my crown and just connect in with that part of myself, and is really since me writing that book, I've actually connected in with, the higher 12, 13, 14, 15D aspects of self. And that's when it gets really interesting, right? We're like moving into the Rishi consciousness and the different DNA templates. And then, actually lately I've been eating very little. I go through the whole day and it's 11:30. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think that I was hungry today. And I think this is just the beginning of that DNA activation. And I feel like there's really exciting stuff waiting for us down the line with that. um, so,
Oh gosh, yes. Totally feeling that. Um, while clearing out a lot of stuff and sort of the empathic overload and just stuff like clearing, grounding. It's so refreshing to talk to you guys, and I know we're going to hear you sing and before we close. But is there anything that you guys want? What was that?
well, there's just one more thing that kind of want to comes through here is that, in when our human self is entangled in the false matrix and feeling like, the only reason why we're here is to save the planet, we can very easily get into that mindset. But the other half of that coin is that, my soul is actually getting a lot out of being here. One of the things that my soul is getting is just the amount of mastery I get to embody in a very short amount of time, the amount of DNA transformation that I get to experience from being purely 3D to, 15D. I mean, like, where else in the omniverse do you actually get to experience that? And so that actually makes me very grateful for this experience I get to have on the planet. And it just makes everything a lot lighter. Like, healing the planet is kind of the byproduct of me actually having this miraculous and incredible experience as a human being.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Well, that tree of life template, 12 spheres and beyond, instead of this distorted tree of life that has been like 10, 11, draconian, the negative factions of the Anunnaki, all these reversal technologies that have been siphoning our life force. It's like, this is a chance to reawaken even the dragon lines, the fallen dragon lines that, to me, the lower octave of the dragon energy is the reptilian. And then when we bring that back, it's like that blue dragon and that kundalini begins to rise and clear those gateways. And I feel like your mission embodies that, like both of you. And man, I could just keep going on. And if there's anything else you guys want to share before we hear your beautiful singing, share now. And
Yeah, I guess I'll go ahead, and then I'm looking forward to Z closing us out with one of her amazing oracular sound healings. But so Z brought up how at her higher level she worked with geometries and the genetic, being a geneticist and stuff. And one of the things I've been focusing on so much with the portals that I make, and that Portal to the New Earth is about, is understanding three-dimensional geometry here in our three-dimensional form and how it relates to the evolution of our consciousness and the evolution of the earth. And so, that's something that, I go into a lot of detail, in the book that's coming up and in the videos that I talk about, just to, make it practical, very, easy for people to access and understand how and why, geometry relates to, this personal evolution that's taking place at this time. So, and then, you even were talking about like the earth energies, the dragon energies, the lines and stuff. And that's what these geometries relate to, that the earth is this conscious living being that was both created by us and interacted with us. And so once we awaken to the level, it's a two-way thing. It's not just separate from us. We are part of the creation of these energies of the earth. And so, the subtitle of my book, Portal to the New Earth, is Sound, Sacred Geometry, and Grid Energies for Personal and Planetary Transformation. And as I was saying, the first step is the personal transformation, where we all awaken to that. But then the second is the planetary transformation, where we start to build these towns, villages, cities that are the most magical, gorgeous places we could, beyond what we can imagine, and do away with this toxic destruction of the environment, and I just hold that vision, that dream of it, but we're actually on the cusp of it. And so thanks, thank you so much. And
thank you for just bringing this in.
And then, like you said, we're going to shift to this other thing, because we do so much talking, and talking is great. And I love to talk. I love to listen. I love, hearing information that way. But then to shift this energy to where we get to listen to Z do her oracular singing, and it has nothing to do with talking or thinking, and it's just the direct experience of this, and it really does have a profound effect.
Oh, totally. Oh my goodness. Oh man. So take it away, Z.
All right, I just have to switch my mics here. It'll only take me a second. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so just gonna start to shift the energy a little bit. What an exciting conversation we got to have today. Laura, thank you so much for having us on. I hope that this is a special treat for your folks. Um, so I call this practice oracle medicine, and we're being an oracle for the galactic and the angelic frequencies, and now for this masterful being, Kara. And I would say that this is one of the arts that the priestesses used to practice. You know, we would open stargates and all sorts of magical higher dimensional beings would come through the stargates, just like we used to experience on this planet. And so many of you probably even remember those days. But yeah, next month when we do this Pleiadian Stargate, we're going to be holding 4 ceremonies. I'm going to be doing 3 workshops and 4 ceremonies. And you're going to get to bask in these transmissions throughout the gateway, and you will get to keep the recordings. And you know, the angelics say that these frequencies are here to help us activate our DNA, and remember where our true home is, which is, you know, this frequency, this sensation in our mind and in our heart. And of course, the anchoring of these energies is how we really create the new earth. And so it's in my purest intentions to support and know that only the highest vibrations that are in alignment with your highest love and joy will transpire. And yeah, just sit back and relax, and here we go. Yeah.
absolutely beautiful. Oh my gosh. Oh wow. I know everybody's like super activated, and I don't even want to really like say too much. It's just wanting to integrate. And gosh, I feel like you guys should close the show, because and just be whatever, closing notes, but that was absolutely incredible. You're just both just amazing beings. It's been such a pleasure. And I know, I mean, I just feel like the English language falls short. It's like, it's such a pleasure, such an honor. I'm so thrilled. It's like, okay. I know you feel me, and I know we're going to connect more in the future, but yeah, I would love you guys to close this show and just sort of take us into the final words. And I just, my final words are, I love you guys. Thank you so much. I want to just transfer something more telepathically than language right now. But yeah, say whatever last things you guys want to say, and just absolutely feel just so inspired and shifted, and just, and like a sort of awe that is more just like, I don't know. I could go on. So any final words, you guys?
Thank you, Laura, so much. I mean, yeah, this is a good. Let's see, am I being featured? I see you're still on the video. I don't see me. Why is it not showing me?
No, you're the
I
main.
see you.
Oh, good. I don't know why, because
We're
you're.
like little boxes, and you're like the whole screen. And
Oh,
it's
good.
recording on my
Okay,
end.
sorry, I shouldn't have said anything because you're still. I thought it would switch.
It might
Okay,
be a feature on your side, because no, we got you. You're
well,
the.
I'll just close with saying that just super grateful. We had talked about doing this a few months back, and so we finally got to do it, and it's just amazing, and the energies all just lined up perfectly to come through. And we talked about a lot of things. So, and I know this will be on your YouTube, and so we'll just have the links listed in the information for all the different things we touched on. Because I think I mentioned a few things. It'll be nice to have links to some of the extraneous things, like Lisa Renee's energetic synthesis, if people want to find out more about her. And of course, Z's Pleiadian activation coming up. And of course, portal to the new earth. And I'm just looking forward to whoever is inspired by this to get in
Amazon
touch.
book link to your book.
Exactly, to Z's book, I Am Starseed. All those things will be there, the information. So perfect. Thank you so much. And of course, looking to future things. Once I get my YouTube going and I'm interviewing people, you're one of the key people I'm going to be interviewing on the Portal to the New Earth channel as well. So I look forward to reciprocating and having you on.
Please.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much, Harlan. You're incredible. Okay, Z, any final words? And I'm going to be re-listening. Like, I'm literally going to wear my headphones and re-listen to what you just did. Like, I'm going to wake up to it. I'm so beautiful. So any final words and before we close?
Yeah, I mean, after we bring through the transmission, it's just such a brilliant energy of peace and joy. And I think the Galactics, they just want us to know that like everything is good, And when Harlan was saying like about what the native elder was saying, we have to embody this peace and this love in our heart. That it's not only not a challenge, but it could be so simple as just tuning into the true essence of who you really are. And these galactics, they're standing with us. They are us. They're us, just in a different time space, continuum. And so we can always tune into these vibrations. These vibrations, they're the real, true reality, outside of the illusion. And if we just look at the 3D matrix, things can look a certain way, but the truth of the reality is that the ascension frequencies, they are landing on this planet. The ascension actually is going great, and it's just about tuning our bandwidth and aligning with that vibration, and then really walking side by side with that materialization. And we're going to start to experience just the true ecstasy of being human, of being able to create our true inheritance of heaven. And so I hope that everybody continues to tune into the frequencies, and we're here supporting the planetary family. See you guys later.
Yes, you guys later.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you guys. And yes, we will reconnect, and just check those links out. And this is something to really fill your heart and spirit with, and that root chakra to really just be able to circulate this energy and like beam that out, and and find that place within yourself where you can really, step into who you are on a much more profound level than the personality matrix, which you have so beautifully reminded everybody of, and way more than just that. It's been such an honor, and just love you guys, and have a great rest of your night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.